Hello, I'm Dr. Tara Palmatier of shrinkformen.com. Welcome to my channel and thank you for watching. If you have a question or would like to schedule a session with me, you can reach me at shrinkformen@gmail.com or shrinkformen@protonmail.com, and you can find both of those addresses in the About section of this video. So the topic of today's video is: why are narcissists and borderlines like Amber Heard such convincing liars? Understanding false abuse allegations. So let's just dive right in. Why are narcissists and borderlines like Amber Heard such convincing liars? What motivates them to fabricate abuse claims? And how do they manage to deceive not just friends and family who are naturally inclined to believe them, but even trained mental health professionals? It is critical that male victims of false abuse allegations know the answers to these questions as a matter of both self-defense and emotional survival. Now, let's be clear. Amber Heard, despite her exaggerated sense of self-importance, is not a unique case, and in fact, revealed a far too common occurrence. Family courts are teeming with individuals like Amber Heard who weaponize false abuse claims for personal gain, revenge, or to manipulate outcomes in custody battles. Now, back in 2022, when the defamation case was going on, the Depp Heard trial struck a chord with many of my clients who have faced similar baseless accusations. Some clients couldn't bear to watch as it triggered traumatic memories of their respective Amber Heard-like exes. Other clients felt angry seeing another man endure what they'd gone through. Conversely, many clients experienced a profound sense of validation seeing Depp confront his abuser and achieve vindication. Then I had clients who were still in toxic relationships at the time who reported that their partners sided with Amber Heard. And these women became aggrieved and, in some cases, enraged at my clients who were brave enough, or foolish enough, as the case may be, to make comparisons. This video is adapted from an article I published the other week and is the first in a 4-part, maybe 5-part series. We'll see. It keeps expanding as I think of other elements in exploring how narcissists and borderlines use deceit and manipulation in false abuse allegations and the psychopathology at play, particularly in the context of divorce and custody battles. So first, let's cover the devastating impact of false abuse allegations, which many of you are probably already familiar with, especially if you or someone you care about has gone through this. So understanding why individuals, particularly those with narcissistic or borderline tendencies, make false abuse allegations is, I believe, essential to helping the falsely accused. The wrongly accused are the actual victims of these cases. False abuse allegations are abuse, period. Yet the devastation reaches far beyond the accused, affecting their children, their families, and communities. The consequences can be quite severe, immediate, and long-lasting, such as children who are separated from their fathers. False allegations often result in children being removed from and alienated from their fathers, as well as from paternal grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. This loss of familial bond can have long-term psychological effects on children and the family who loves them. False allegations can cause financial ruin. The accused may face crippling legal fees, often leading to severe financial strain and even bankruptcy. Defending against false claims can be costly and often leaves irreparable financial damage. And there's career and livelihood disruption. False accusations can result in job loss, damaged professional reputations, and difficulties securing future employment, further compounding the financial strain. False allegations can trigger a mental health crisis. The stress and trauma of enduring false allegations can lead to chronic anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other serious mental health issues, not to mention unhealthy coping mechanisms like drinking too much, eating too much, excessively playing video games, anything where the person is numbing themselves out. False allegations can lead to physical health decline. We know that chronic stress can lead to physical health problems such as high blood pressure, insomnia, and autoimmune disorders as the body struggles to cope with the prolonged emotional strain. False allegations add to the burden in the legal system. These cases clog court systems, wasting time and resources. This overburdening delays justice and contributes to an already strained legal process. False allegations can lead to social isolation. Relationships with friends, family, new partners, and the broader community can deteriorate or be severed altogether due to the stigma of being falsely accused. Then there's the erosion of legal trust. False allegations can undermine public trust in the legal system. Furthermore, the lack of consequences for false accusers is appalling, and why so many people see family court as a joke, particularly in these matters. Then there's the stigma and public perception. False allegations undermine public trust in the legal system, especially when false accusers go unpunished, and many of them do. This results in skepticism towards all abuse claims and also adds to the perception that family court is biased against men. And I just want to add, or I should clarify, it's not just a perception that family court is biased against men. It's a reality, okay? The fallout from false abuse allegations is extensive and can last a lifetime. Identifying the psychological traits of those who make these false claims is important to understand why this behavior occurs, the damage it causes, and how to protect yourself both in and out of the courtroom. In the following sections, I'm going to explore the character traits and psychological factors that drive this behavior. So let's start with high conflict personality disorders that frequently use false abuse allegations to punish their targets of blame. Why are narcissists and borderline such convincing liars? It's due to the interplay of character pathology and other psychological factors that drive their behavior. False accusers, usually have one of the high conflict personality disorders, including narcissistic, histrionic, borderline, passive aggressive, paranoid, and of course the antisocials, psychopaths, and sociopaths. Sociopaths. There, I said it. These individuals are highly defensive and rigid and lack insight into their own behavior, denying any personal shortcomings. They are acutely sensitive to how others view them making them hypersensitive to criticism and rejection. This sensitivity can cause them to confuse feelings with facts, especially when they perceive a threat, not to their physical safety, but to their false self. A narcissist or borderline may feel abused or unsafe when in reality, no abuse has occurred. It's from a study done by Zepsauer in 1994. For example, a borderline wife fears that her husband might reveal her numerous affairs to their pastor, exposing her true nature. Rather than admit she's afraid of exposure, she fabricates vague claims of feeling unsafe or outright lies of abuse to manipulate the situation, protect her image, and garner sympathy and pity. The fear of exposure is not the kind of fear, the fear of exposure is not grounds for a restraining order. At least it shouldn't be. It often is. According to researchers Wakefield and Underwager, this is a quote, false accusers are likely to misperceive the behavior of others and to react to stressful situations in maladaptive ways. Depending upon the specific personality disorder, they are characterized by instability of mood, impulsivity, inappropriate emotional overreactions, a need for approval and attention, and difficulties handling anger and conflict, end of quote. False accusers often harbor obsessive hatred and anger toward their ex-partners who become their targets of blame. And target of blame is a term that I believe was coined by Bill Eddy in one of his high conflict people books. And targets of blame are exactly what it sounds like, the scapegoats for high conflict people. And high conflict people is sort of an anodyne, legalistic term for personality disordered people. So these emotions, anger and hatred and resentment, become the driving force in these individuals' lives. False abuse allegations are rarely rooted in genuine fear of the accused, but rather stem from deep-seated anger and hatred for the accused. These people are not afraid. They are angry and hateful, okay? This same anger and hatred also fuels parental alienation cases, where the primary goal is not protection of the children, but to punish and control the targeted parent. Now let's talk about the psychology of deceit. Narcissists, borderlines, histrionics, and psychopaths have several traits in common. In fact, some mental health professionals see them as, and I quote, different variations of the same theme. Now, while they may behave somewhat differently, Otto Kernberg, you may be familiar with his name, his research and work with borderlines and other personality disordered individuals led him to observe that their underlying character structure is basically the same. Okay, I'm going to repeat this because I do believe this is important. Narcissists, borderlines, histrionics, and psychopaths have several traits in common. In fact, some mental health professionals see them, and I'm one of them, see them as different variations of the same theme. While they may behave somewhat differently, Their underlying character structure is basically the same. In other words, tigers, lions, and cougars have different appearances. But all of them are man-eaters, and I wouldn't voluntarily get in a cage with any of them. Now, hopefully, this will answer the recurring complaints from self-identified BPD YouTube commenters asking why I lump borderlines in the same category as narcissists and psychopaths. It's because you are in the same category. BPD is not the noble, innocent personality disorder in the cluster B category, okay? Variations of the same theme. One characteristic these individuals share is a tendency for impulsive lying that's driven by emotion. Robert Hare, you may be familiar with that name. He's done a lot of work in the field of psychopathy. He wrote Without Conscience, The Disturbing World of the Psychopaths Among Us. So, sorry, lost my place. Robert Hare found that cluster B people have difficulty integrating the factual and affective aspects of speech. Words don't carry the same emotional meaning for them as they do for normies. This disconnect results in fewer constraints in how they use language, leading Hare to observe that, for the psychopath, lying is just a matter of moving words around. The lack of emotional comprehension of language adds to their lack of empathy, causing them to see others as objects to be controlled. And this is a quote from the book Lies, Lies, Lies by Dr. Ford. Deceit is the prerequisite of manipulation. So, Conditioned autonomic nervous system responses such as sweating, increased heart rate, or muscle tension also seem to be absent in these individuals. Consequently, they have less fear in risky situations and a diminished reaction to internal cues like guilt. The absence of uncomfortable physiological responses may explain why they don't learn from past experiences and are such prolific liars. Narcissists and borderlines are able to lie so convincingly because of these psychological mechanisms, or the absence of some. To further understand how their deceit operates in respect to false abuse allegations, let's examine the 5 fears that drive the behaviors of high conflict personalities. Now, I've talked about this before, but in case you're new to my work, this will be new to you, or hopefully a helpful refresher for those of you who are familiar with my work. So, much of the bizarre, destructive behavior exhibited by narcissists and borderlines is driven by 5 core fears that protect their false self, or the idealized image they project to the world. Now, sick as it is, blameless victim is an idealized image that many of these individuals want to project. These fears function as the unconscious and at times conscious fuel for the manipulative and chaotic patterns they display. The 5 fears include abandonment, loss of narcissistic supply, feeling or appearing to be inferior or inadequate, exposure, and loss of control. And if you want a more in-depth discussion of this topic, you can check out the video, Narcissists Don't Feel Grief, They Feel Aggrieved in High Conflict Divorce. These fears drive their manipulative and erratic behavior. For example, The fear of abandonment often leads them to lash out or make desperate, controlling attempts to maintain power in a relationship. The need for narcissistic supply, that's constant admiration and validation, is so strong that any perceived threat to it triggers a range of manipulative tactics, including false accusations, in an effort to maintain dominance. But how does pretending to be a victim make one more powerful? Well, paradoxically, the victim role can be a very powerful one, and I will address this in one of the future articles and videos in this series. So, among these fears, exposure is perhaps the most dangerous. The personality disordered are terrified of being seen for who they truly are. This fear explains why they fabricate abuse allegations, preemptively tarnishing their partner's reputation before their own lies and behaviors are brought to light. Similarly, the fear of losing control motivates them to create chaos and confusion, ensuring that they hold the upper hand in situations they cannot otherwise manipulate. These 5 fears are exacerbated by a concept known as the tendency for interpersonal victimhood, or TIV, because the field of psychology needs another acronym, which is a psychological framework in which toxic individuals see themselves as perpetual victims to justify their manipulative behavior. Now, in the past, I've referred to this as the professional victim mindset. And to be fair to myself, when I was writing my articles about professional victims, this was years before the concept of the tendency for interpersonal victimhood was developed by researchers at the University of Tel Aviv. Okay, so this professional victim mindset, or just victim mindset, its belief system allows these individuals to justify their abusive behaviors, seeing themselves as continually wronged and therefore entitled to bend the rules in their favor. This mindset perpetuates their destructive cycle of manipulation and deceit. Now, the tendency for interpersonal victimhood is reinforced by a toxic cocktail of traits that include the need for recognition, moral elitism, lack of empathy, rumination, an anxious attachment style, rejection sensitivity, a focus on negative emotional intensity, emotional reasoning, pathological lying, which can include duping delight, pathological entitlement, control freakery, an inability to forgive, vengefulness, the dark triad, Darvo, and a few other factors. Now, do all of these traits I just rattled off sound familiar to anyone? They should, because these characteristics are common across all the cluster B personality disorders. Psychology, I love the field. Well, not all parts of it, but one thing that's always been frustrating is different researchers are working on different things. There are different schools of thought, and we have a lot of language and terminology, depending on the school of thought, for basically the same phenomenon. Anyway, I digress. To conclude, false abuse allegations by narcissists, borderlines, and other high conflict personalities are deeply rooted in their need to protect the false self. Their erratic and destructive behaviors are driven by 5 core fears. Again, that's abandonment, loss of narcissistic supply, feelings of inadequacy, fear of exposure, and loss of control. These fears push them to manipulate, deceive, and even fabricate abuse claims, creating chaos in relationships and family court battles. Understanding these fears and the tendency for interpersonal victimhood offers powerful insights into why these individuals behave the way they do, especially when backed into a corner. And by backed into a corner, I don't mean that their husband or boyfriend literally has them physically backed into a corner. Again, we're talking about the 5 fears, which has to do with their false self. For male abuse victims, recognizing these patterns can be the first step toward protecting yourself legally and emotionally. In subsequent articles and videos, I will explore how the tendency for interpersonal victimhood connects to the lies narcissists, borderlines, and the other high conflict personalities tell, particularly in the context of divorce and custody battles. So in the next video in this series, I will break down the toxic traits that fuel false allegations and how you can navigate this in court. If you're currently dealing with a false abuse allegation, don't wait. Arm yourself with knowledge and consult a professional such as myself who understands these dynamics. Again, I am Dr. Tara Palmatier of shrinkformen.com. If you have a question or would like to schedule a session with me, you can reach me at shrinkformen@gmail.com or shrinkformen@protonmail.com. You can find those addresses in the About section of this video, along with links to the article I adapted the video from and all of my social media accounts. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you again for watching. Please check back soon for new content.